Hi, I'm Carol Lee Espy. It's Friday night, and that can only mean one thing. The Friday Fearsome Foursome is back on Q.
I'm Chris Moore. In just a few moments, the very opinionated Jerry Boyer, Alan Cox, Fred Hansberger, and Lynn Cullen will weigh in on the news of the week.
Plus, the 17th annual Pittsburgh Rock Challenge kicks off next week. Is a challenge win followed by fame and fortune? Well, we'll find out in a special Where Are They Now Rock Challenge preview. Stay with us. On Q starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Stacy Smith.
And I'm Carol Lee Espy.
And I'm Chris Moore. Welcome to On Q.
And it is Friday, and that means the Friday Fearsome Foursome is here tonight.
And that can mean sentence discussion, some of which may not be entirely appropriate for younger viewers. That's our disclaimer. It also means that our professional newsman here may bow out at times.
But hey, before we make our introduction, shouldn't we roll that Fearsome Foursome opening at the dinner I wasn't invited to? Director Dave, can you make it happen?
Okay, back again for more. Are from left to right. Boyer.
Dinner, by the way. I wasn't invited either.
It was seafood quiche.
Is that right?
Excellent, yes.
I bet.
Back for more. Here we are from left to right. Jerry Boyer of the Allegheny Institute, the PTT.
You said from left to right, and then you introduced
I'm only
Jerry
reading what they
Boyer?
wrote, okay? Well, he's way right, but we know what you mean by that.
Absolutely right.
He's also with PCNC and WPCB Channel 40. I may never get through this open because of Lynn Cullen of WPTT AM. Also with us, Alan Cox, the thug from 105.9 The X,
I am.
and Fred Hansberger from KDK AM and PCNC. Now, I called Alan the thug because that's how he was referred to today in a letter that appeared in the Weekend magazine, Central Post Gazette. The letter writer says radio stations go too far these days in the race for ratings. He used words like vile, crude, and disgusting. And Alan, since you're the alleged thug, let's get to
Eat the few out that I'm very upset about.
Well, you included some. I listened a little bit to you
I did.
today, and you included some pretty right words.
I don't think there's anything negative about those words whatsoever. I don't think so.
Now, I caution you, we don't have a delay here,
Yeah,
okay?
I know.
But there
This
are
is
some
live?
there are some words that you were using today, and sometimes I listen to you, and they're bleeping words,
Right.
words that even George Carlin would say that
Yeah, like
they're
what?
not
Give
words.
us first letters.
Well, use
F and
F,
Use the F.
S.
Use the F word?
They bleep it.
Well,
They-
I bleep them, but but what am I going to? Somebody calls me. First of all, I should clarify by saying I'm not the one using that language. When people call me on the phone, and I'm airing a call, they use that language, which they oftentimes will. I'll bleep it because you can't use that on the air. But I think the problem people have with me is it's not so much the words I use, is that the ideas that I sometimes throw out there are much more offensive than any particular words
Well,
I might
you
use.
used words. You used it. He talked about sex toys and descriptions of them.
I did.
You offered the letter writer one of those.
I did, sure. Yeah.
Unless you're giving the prizes away?
I am. Yeah. Yep. The Deep Six Sailor Elite.
You're not giving pizzas away. You're giving away buyers.
I am.
Here's the question. Here's the question that needs to be answered.
Well, here's
What is the demographic you're
here's the
going for?
The
and what is your audience?
The demographic, which is exactly what I told this guy. Because our station, which plays new rock and roll, it's new stuff, it's loud, it's heavy, you attract a very large portion of teenagers. That's the kind of music. I'm 28 and I still listen to that kind of music. However, the perception is that's the only group of people listening to us, and that's not true because our average listener is my age.
You
Our average
even had a
listener is
high school
28.
teacher call you, and you all had a discussion about what goes on in the classroom, and you said it was much worse than what goes on over the radio
I have
and your
12-year-old
airwaves.
Yeah, I have 12-year-old kids who call me and will say, could you play this, or what about this? And I'll say, yeah. I'll say, F you. You know?
All right.
12-year-old kids. I'm not telling them, hey, could you say that? I don't necessarily
Yeah, but you
espouse
play
that
it with just the beep in it.
Yeah, but
and people knows what it is.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Fred, would you let anybody on the air do with those kind
Well,
of
you
words?
know, Chris, it
Well, I
happens
mean, you
once
have
in a
the
while.
delay.
We do have the audio condom on, which is our delay system, so that nobody can get away with saying stuff like that. But when I was just getting into the swinging, swirling world of broadcasting, it's interesting to see how far we've come. Because when I was first starting, they pulled the plug on a disc jockey in Philadelphia for playing some Alice Cooper song and said he's riding to L.A. with a key, or you could not play White Rabbit by the Jefferson Airplane because it was a drug song, and the FCC said, no drug songs. You do a drug song, boom, we're pulling you off the air. And the owner of the station pulled the plug on this guy because he played Alice Cooper. Not Alice Cooper, I forget who it was. It was the, I don't know, it wasn't Alice Cooper.
So this debate has been around a long time.
Yeah, but
Jerry,
now
you wanna weigh in?
it just moves from there now up to here. And where else are we going? What other words do we have to shop? We're going to have to start making up words now because we used all the words.
I wonder if the question here that Chris is raising with Alan is, are you not putting those, even the bleeped telephone calls on like that in an effort to try to get more of those calls, more of those kinds of listeners into your program?
No, because they don't. I wouldn't say that's a major concern because those kind of calls don't generate more calls like that. If I put things on like that, because you know what? Let's be frank. This is public television, and there's a lot of stuff we can't say. It's a live show. If one of us were to say something, it wouldn't get bleeped. There's a lot of things we can't say on here. But people don't talk like that. And I talk very close on my show to how I would normally talk.
But does that encourage it?
What that is.
Does that encourage it?
No, it doesn't. No, I don't think it does.
Respectfully say,
Because people don't say, man, that gosh darn song is good.
May I
They don't
respectfully
talk
say,
like
may I
that.
respectfully, there are people who talk that way, and there are people who make sure they talk that way for a reason.
You mean with Randy language, or they censor themselves?
No,
Which way do you
I
mean?
believe
You mean-
there are people who talk and
have
profanity.
these ever.
Yeah, and
Because
profanity
they have
is
the
in there.
vocabulary of a pea brain, okay?
People who don't
what
use-
we're
well,
talking about
yeah.
is people who have no capacity to articulate a coherent thought. And there is so much of this on the air now. And if I may speak now, as the mother of an 8-year-old child in this disgusting
She always brings
culture.
up motherhood every week.
This is a
Well, can you
child
bring
at
up
about
No, I cannot.
It's
You're
the
right.
Cody syndrome,
a
right?
child of about 8 and 9. They're starting to listen. They want to hear what's on this station and on that station. There is no drive time show, morning or afternoon, that any good parent can bear the thought of their child listening to.
And there's nothing
I
wrong
ask,
with
is
that
there no
because
sense
radio,
of responsibility on the
because
part of people who own these radio stations?
No, radio is not intended to entertain 8-year-old children unless you
The
run.
problem with radio.
I don't run a daycare center. I do a radio
The problem with
show.
the medium of radio. I have to shock everyone. I agree with Lynn absolutely. I think that using that kind of language, and we off the air, I'm sure we all curse from time to time. Using that sort of language says I can't
I beg your
articulate.
pardon.
No, we don't.
No, you
No,
never
we
curse.
don't. No,
you never
no.
ever curse.
I
in your
do.
life.
have in my
I
life.
All
do.
right, great.
Yeah.
All right, so we all curse from time to time. My point is that what's on the air should be exemplary. It's not the way we shouldn't talk on the air the way we talk normally. We ought to talk on the air in the way that we want to exemplify something and be imitated. I'm not sure because I don't listen to the program whether or not you're causing people to imitate that.
Well, it's a completely different
But my
audience.
point
you guys,
is,
first
it's
and
not a
foremost-
justification to say people do it all the time. What's on the air is supposed to be different. That's why it's on the radio, as opposed to just people sitting around and talking.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
it's supposed to be better.
There's my major contention with people though is that they say, well, your target audience is way too young. I say, no, our target audience is not young. Our target audience is my age. That means to me, whatever I say on the air is well within the jurisdiction of adult listeners.
Well, you know 15-year-olds and younger listen to you.
Sure, I know they do, and most of them that call me are much more articulate than the parents who call me. That's why I don't have a problem with it, because
you
I
talked
know.
to one parent who called you and said today and said, I have my grandmother in the car and I have children in the car, and you're using language describing.
And you know what that language was?
And you said,
And you know what that
I
language
know what
was?
the language
You
was.
don't
I
know what it
listened
was
to it.
because she didn't call today.
I listened
No.
to it. Well, whether it was today or not, you made it seem like it was today, and the FCC might want to see you about that, about fooling the audience.
Forget what he's saying.
no,
What about the music that's being played? I mean, that's something else. And I'm not saying burn down the radio station or anything.
And that's
But the
garbage,
music
too.
stuff
Before
is.
we burn anything down, let's try to get some other subjects in. Fifth and Forbes, the development there. Everybody's
You know what's
groaning on it.
incredible
As a
is
mother, here's
that this
Lynn
guy
Cullen.
and I
Yeah.
are going to agree again
Yes,
for
it's
coming at it from different reasons. I think it's really wrong-headed. I know that a lot of people elected Tom Murphy mayor. Nobody elected him as the dictator. The arrogance of this man and the pushing through of these huge public projects with next to no input.
You don't like
from
taking
us.
private property and giving it to
I
other
think it's
private
outrageous.
property owners?
I think it's outrageous the way he's
Eminent
using it.
Right. The eminent domain is part of the Pennsylvania Constitution, it's part of the U.S. Constitution, but we've had consensus for over 200 years. You take private property away for a public use, a park, a school, a highway.
How
Historically
many
interesting
times have
last
they-
night, though, Tom Cox on Q
Right.
sat about where you are right now and said, this is the way we've always done it here, to use it to
I know,
take it to
I know
one-
he said that he's wrong. It hasn't always been done
Yeah,
that
and you're
way.
right, because how many times have they used eminent domain is the big question the mayor will always ask.
Once.
Right, but he always used the
Once.
threat of it. He
You know
used
what
the
this
threat
is?
of
This
it.
is- this is what-
That's eminent domain. If he says, I'm going to use eminent domain if you don't give me the property, they say, okay, I give up.
I'm tiring of it because it's all about negotiation. It's all about positioning. Talk to the merchants who are displaced at PPG Place. Almost everyone to a business is doing much better now than they were before PPG
Except the
Place.
ones that were moved to a building created specifically for
Oh,
them that's now going to be torn down again for another eminent domain project. They moved them to a building they created for that purpose, and now they're tearing that building down. They've been moved 3 times.
When
The
you
Maloney's
attract
been moved
more
3
people
times.
downtown, these other businesses are going to do better. I had Jim Furlow on my TV show today, and Jim is saying, look, and he's pretty fiery on the other side, on your side, as a matter of fact.
Right,
He said there's going to be a compromise.
Right.
There is going to be a compromise. There's going to be a compromise on buildings.
Right.
There's going to be a
By the way,
compromise
it's not going to
on-
attract people downtown.
That's
This
what-
sort of
see,
thing does
that's the
not
point.
attract people
This is a
downtown.
wrong-headed
They can go to a mall
notion.
already out there in the mall.
The
Why
mall
create
doesn't have
the
the
stores they're talking about already exist.
No, they
most
don't.
Of them in,
Where's
in
Nordstrom? Where's
who's going
Tiffany's?
to- oh,
Where's
who's
Nordstrom?
going to-
And Nordstrom says they'll go someplace else in the
one's
region if
living
this
where?
doesn't happen in the city.
This is a doomed idea.
This-
Right.
this
shop in the
plan
city,
is-
and
this
they
company-
People first, then retailers follow.
This company
It
has
has
not
to be
failed.
organic. It
In any-
can't be
in any
government
city where they
creating
put
a
it, this
downtown.
company has
Have they ever
not
built it? Have
failed.
they ever built it in Pittsburgh
No, they
before?
haven't. Could
Speaking
be.
of things that have not failed as of yet. All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Is only here can you find out that Jerry Boyer and Jim Furlow agreed also.
I have to tell you, the big
I'm
problem
going to go get an ACLU card.
where was the Preservation Society when they put that 7-Eleven awning on the Roberts building how many years
Excellent
ago?
point.
Like, why is this coming up now? They've already ruined the facade of most of those
I
buildings
looked at most of these
anyway,
buildings.
at
I can't
street
find
level.
any worth saving. They're all decrepit. I'm not an architect, and beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
It's the facade. Okay, we've got to get to
But
some of
they're
the-
owned by those shop owners. It's their decision.
Let's get to some of the news of the day. We just got an email from our fearless leader here, George L. Miles Jr., that says, late this afternoon, the FCC rescinded the additional programming guidance directed toward Cornerstone in the order of the December 29th. The rest of the order remains in effect. Our initial reaction is that this is good news and that we look forward to meeting with other parties. Jerry Boyer, let's go down the line.
I think it's great. This was absolutely ridiculous. This has been dragging on for 2.5 years. This station owns a license that they don't need anymore. Simulcasting was not necessary. They made a decision that they were going to sell a business asset. There's another station out of town that needed it, and there's a station in between, Channel 40, that had a commercial license that didn't need it. Win, win, win.
Okay.
Wait,
How
this is
much-
not a normal business. This is a public
How much of
television
a free-
station.
how much
still
of
a business.
free
It's a
speech
public
issue is this?
television
Lynn,
station.
how
That's
much-
part of my money.
How much of a free speech issue is this in terms of...
Not a free speech
Well,
issue.
no,
There are
no, when they rescinded the educational programming
limitations
issue,
on what
there were
Flip
limitations on that.
Flip
Most
through your
religious
cable.
stations-
Flip through your any state, the radio or the TV. There are religious stations all over the place. There is
they're
no
all
infringement.
cursing.
There is no.
They're cursing Satan. They're cursing evil.
There is
They're
no
cursing everybody.
infringement on
Fred,
their right. But
Fred.
in a public station, there should be infringement.
Fred, would you call a religious service an educational program?
Religious services and educational, it could be, I guess.
Isn't
but
or is?
It could be, but we're talking about what CTV
Teaching
was
educating
doing.
them.
children to drink wine.
There you go. I mean,
Sacramento,
curse after.
it's been
debate,
blessed.
the debate over this, whether what they teach is educational. Linda Wambaugh and those other wackos would go out there and say, oh, they teach creationism. They teach that there's no such thing as global warming. You know, I don't think there is anything as global warming. And who is the director of curriculum for public television that says it's okay to show naked penises and who knows whatever?
don't believe in global warming, is that what
I
you're
do not.
saying?
That's exactly
Good
right.
Lord
Tongues
in
on
heaven.
tide. I know, it's a strange thing.
Okay.
Tongues on
Neither
tide.
do about
we can
10,000
promote this. We can
climatologists, by the way.
educate you on this. But if we educate, how could someone not believe in creationism? How could someone believe that Jesus Christ is alive and teach that as education? That people like Lynn Cullen will say, this isn't educational because I don't believe in it. Well, there's a lot of stuff that goes on this television station that
Because
I
they
don't
think it's
believe
beyond the
in.
pale.
You don't think there's
Absolutely.
such a thing as fact, huh? There's not fact. There's no difference between science
Let me
and
tell you
religion.
something. It's the theory of evolution, Lynn.
God
It's not the fact of evolution. It's the theory.
Yeah,
it
well,
is the
because,
global warming theory, and I can get you as many scientists as you can get me that there is global warming. I can get you scientists to say there isn't.
Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle.
All right, you
Well, just try and stop me.
Look,
I want to
government
get to our
shouldn't choose
grammarian
content.
here. We've talked about the state of morals and everything. What about the state of grammar, Lynn?
Oh, the grammar lady.
Yeah, the grammar lady is here.
I went nuts
Just try and
because,
stop
no,
me from
it
talking
ain't-
about
It ain't too
this,
good,
okay?
right?
No, the Post-Gazette does something with such regularity. It drives me crazy. And finally, the other day, front page, there it was again. So many of the reporters do it. Obviously, their editors let it through. It is the phrase, try and do something. So they are
try
going
and
to
do,
try
try
and.
to.
That is so
Right.
incorrect. It is not correct. It is try to.
And
That is
wait to see. Everybody says wait and see. It's wait to see, right,
But you
Lynn?
see here, you were talking about that broadcasters should be elevating
Yes,
the
absolutely.
speech that we hear.
I'm not gonna
I
defend
would
the
think,
Post-Gazette.
Good heavens, if a newspaper, when newspapers start dumbing down,
Exactly right.
God help us.
Let's go work for the BBC.
We could put out a whole page ad that says, "Don't be such an ignorant."
And ignorant. Don't be so ignorant.
Don't be such an ignorant.
Well, that's another word around here that is used incorrectly.
And
Incorrectly.
ignorant.
Ignorant is used as meaning
Oh, no.
rude.
Rude,
I love it when
coarse.
there's props.
Right.
Why are you looking at this so hard? Lynn, this is a parting gift from us to you.
What
It
in
says
heaven's name?
money goes here. It's our on cue little can, and we know you'll be out
Collection.
raising funds for us, and we want to give this to you.
So it switched
on
to
your
Christian-
show. You've been pretty tough on us
It switched to
on
Christian
the air.
TV already. You're taking up a
Can I be the
collection.
first?
But Fred is the first to contribute. We're going to go down the line. We'll notice that Fred put a nickel in.
No, it
We
was a
won't call
quarter.
him cheap. It was a quarter?
it was new
Well, I guess we
quarters.
can't call him cheap. No
Those new
folding
quarters
You
money
think I've
over
been
here.
tough on you? See, what I have to admit, I love criticizing television more than I love being on television, and it's very difficult to be on it and criticize it too. So
But-
this will be my last.
But we really hope
appearance
not
on
to
the
tell you
Fearsome
the
Foursome.
truth. As a colleague, let me say that I have always respected you. When I was on your show on WQEX, it was always a joy to be with
Yes, it was
you
always a joy
or
to have you.
Ann, and it's always a joy to have you here. So you're always going to have the welcome mat, as far as I'm concerned. And I hope I
Even
speak
if
for
I
these two
slander
too.
you Monday through
Who
Thursday.
cares? I love it. I sit there
Well, how sweet.
and
As long as
listen
you
to
come
you
back
all
with
the
that
time.
can.
It's publicity,
It's
right?
publicity. We'll take it as long as you say our names
slander
right.
and libel, then we can make even more money for us.
All right, okay.
Yeah, you'll need that.
Well, we'll have to bring this to a close sometime, and it appears that time is now. We're going to say goodbye to Lynn Cullen for now.
What a
But
chicken.
we hope you'll
What
stop.
unbelievable. Back in. I can't believe you.
You think I'm chicken? I got better things to do with my Friday night than spend it with
Oh, like
you
I
guys.
don't.
But we
Like
hope,
I don't.
I got hot
we hope
dates.
that Lynn will come back. Lynn, we hope you'll come back sometime, okay? Okay, and as for the rest of you, Jerry Boyer, Alan Cox, and Fred Chicken Man Hansberger, we'll see you back here next week, and we'll initiate Pittsburgh Courier columnist Hop Kendrick into the Fearsome Foursome right here on Friday. It should be fun. Thanks for being here tonight.
Pleasure.
Thanks.
Goodbye,
you.
Lynn.
Bye.
Oh, please.
Get over it.
This woman has left more radio
over,
and
we'll
television
talk.
jobs than I've had in my career.
Coming up next, VH1 has it, and now so does On Q, and you might even hear about it on Lynn's show. Where are they now? Find out who made it and who didn't after winning the Pittsburgh Rock Challenge next.
But first, here is what we have coming up on Mondays on Q.
Monday on Q, Pittsburgh Mayor Tom Murphy is our One on Q guest. Every Monday, we devote half of the show to a local newsmaker you want to hear from.
From downtown development to how he's getting along with new county executive and Republican Jim Roddy.
Plus, a robot from CMU finds extraterrestrial material in Antarctica. We've got the video, Monday on Q. Quiet, I'm trying to do TV. The 17th annual Pittsburgh Rock Challenge kicks off next weekend. Now, it's a big event for local musicians because winning means a seat